January 10th, 2025, St. Joseph County Election Board meeting to order. Silent roll call and pledge allegiance. All right, new business. First item is an update on the final audit report.
All right, thank you very much. I just wanted everyone to know that we have the initial audit report, the media one. The final one will not be ready until the end of January because it has to go through the Secretary of State's office for approval and certification. So we would expect, it will be the same results as what happened in the initial, but it does have to go through the certification in the Secretary of State's office, and then they will send it on to us. So just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that date, okay?
Okay. Questions? All right. Next item is consolidation of elections and voter registration staff.
All right, I'd like to speak to this, and then Tricia will be speaking to some of it as well. These are lessons learned that we always like to reflect back and understand what happened in the previous election and what ways we can move forward with certainly communication and oversight for all of our election workers. And one of the suggestions that we want to put on the table is to consolidate our voter registration office, which is here on the 4th floor, with the current space in the basement of Courthouse 1. I'm still in the basement of Courthouse 1. Tricia is still there. And lessons learned from this presidential election is that it is not the best solution to have leadership separated from the actual work that's being done. Kim's office has been up here, as election clerk, has been up here on the 4th floor as well. So oversight of actual processes that are happening, I think the election clerk and the chief deputy need to be together, as well as speaking more generally about the absentee workers that we had during this last presidential election. So having looked at the space, we had 8-foot tables set up on the 4th floor there, multiple sets of 8-foot tables in which the election workers were processing absentee ballots, sending absentee ballots out, all of those kinds of things. So all of the election work was being done on that 4th floor voter registration office. And as I mentioned, oversight was a constant problem. Our absentee workers are very well trained, very competent, but there are so many little nuanced things that happen within the process of the entire election, that the constant oversight would be much more of a best practice, I would believe. We had Kim up there, Tricia down in the basement, lots of talking, lots of emails, lots of going back and forth. And at times there was confusion about processes and things like that. So in trying to bring all of elections and voter registration, because voter registration, has been a part of the clerk's office now since last year, since 2023. I think if you're looking at a solid business practice, to have everybody in the same place. So oversight and guidance and communication, I think, is one of the reasons to have everyone in the same place. The other reason certainly is the space that's available. Our ballot room back there, which we thought, initially we thought was a great idea because it was on the same floor as where central count would be. And it was very secure, cameras, all of that. But we had to move, but it is not a single-use ballot room. It formerly was and has changed back to the break room for voter registration and jury. So those staff people have the break room there. It's also where we have multiple big copiers. It's also where we have the recycle bin. and it's also storage for random things from voter registration and for elections. Along those lines, we had a lot of supplies, election supplies, that were down in the basement. And that proved labor intensive as well. They need more up in here, so we're digging around down here in the basement, bringing up some supplies that need to be used in the elections process. So that is not really a best practice to have, random kinds of things in the basement and random kinds of things here. But back to the ballot room itself, I think it's a good thing to have it a single-use room, and very secure. So in the basement, we are thinking that the supply area, this big supply room, which is at the back of the basement clerk space, would be an excellent place to have a ballot room, taking out all those random supplies, and some of them are election supplies there, tables and scanners and things like that. Sort of a random mishmash in the basement, what we call the storage area right now. All of those things could be moved to another space in the basement, and we could dedicate that room, moving the locks, of course, from the ballot room that are up here on the 4th floor, moving the surveillance cameras. We wouldn't need to purchase anything more. It's just moving things differently. So security of that ballot room, I think, that is certainly another reason. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question.
Sure.
Part of voter registration, of course, and especially during the times not close to elections, it's public facing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, have we figured out how individuals will access voter registration? Would we use the windows that are typically that are in the clerk's office now, or how would that interface with what the clerk's office is doing? It seems like there's the risk of things kind of getting muddled together.
Right.
And how do we make sure that people know where to go for voter registration? Folks who may come to the county city building once a year, and this is a little bit of a mystery to them. We want to make sure that people can get their work done.
Right, and I do recognize voter registration has always been there, right?
And it's convenient.
Yeah, and very convenient. So yes, in the basement they would access it. Those are the only staff that would be down there is voter registration and myself. Elections and voter registration, so it would not be any clerks. We have moved the former clerks, marriage licenses, child support, e-filing, or filing upstairs to be, when the flood happened down there, that's why we moved them up immediately, and that ended up being a great move for the public, so they're much more accessible up there. So as for accessibility for people who do visit voter registration, what we'd like to do is have 2 clerks up here until, perhaps July 1st of 2025, staffing up here, and these clerks can do anything. They can file stamp, they can do voter registration. So in order to get the word out that our voter registration is moving then to the basement. So we would use the St. Joseph County website. We would use their Facebook as announcing from whenever we make the decision to move. Voter registration will be moving July 1st, 2025, to get the public ample notice that it is going to be merged with elections and voter registration and downstairs. So the window is where only elections and voter registration will be. It'll be a single use window down there. And working with the St. Joseph County website to get that information out, banner ads on, banner things on the website. And then our highest priority for our website revisions, which is part of our 2025 plan with no election, the number one priority is to make revisions and user-friendly webpage for elections and voter registration. Even I have trouble with the website, so our priority would be elections and voter registration, making easy buttons for them to click, encouraging people to make phone calls directly to voter registration with questions, And additionally, making clear that if someone has trouble finding us or doesn't want to come in, we can do things over the mail as well. So maybe increasing that information for the voters that, snail mail works just fine for us. We can mail forms to them and do that. So a marketing program of giving people, 6 months, 7 months, whatever sounds reasonable, to make understand that we are now down in the basement of Courthouse 1. But
And for accessibility too, for those who have, the courthouse is a little bit, you have to go through the county city building to get to the basement of the courthouse, basically.
No, you can go through the courthouse
That's right, you
itself.
can go-
Yes, yeah, uh-huh.
They can come in off of Main Street, and they would literally just take the elevator down and be right there. It's actually a little bit
Off
more
of Main Street
convenient.
for people who are disabled, like in a wheelchair or something like that?
Yeah, there's handicap parking out there.
Ramp on
Yep,
the Main
mhm.
Street. so-
It's
know
my
that- I know there's one
understanding
in
that all the
Courthouse 2.
courthouses are ADA accessible.
Courthouse 2, I know, is a ramp, but I don't know.
Yeah, because they come up that ramp.
It's on the, it's on the back. It's,
Yeah.
the ramp is on the back of
It's,
Courthouse 1, I believe, isn't it?
well, it's like right next to the viaduct. They can, there's that ramp there. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I know it's ADA accessible in
Okay,
some way,
I was
shape, or
going to say
form.
that may
Right.
be an issue that comes up and that needs to be explained more fully, or re-sign, there new signage out that,
Yes, new
deals with those
signage
kind
would
of things.
certainly be a part of this whole thing as well, so new signage in the building, our own particular webpage, election and voter registration, asking the county to post on their website and on their Facebook page, get the word out that we're all in one place now. So I think that was about all of but Tricia, did you have anything to add to that?
Well, I just wanted to say that up until I moved Kim upstairs, she was downstairs. So there was still a process of everyone coming up to VR and then having to go back downstairs. So then I moved her up, and then with the presidential, and then finding that 10 people in that back room for a ballot room was just not feasible. And so then those individuals would have to leave. I mean, obviously, because you couldn't stay in there, so then everyone would have to leave, and then they'd have to go down into the basement to take their lunches. The space that's available in the clerk is, like you said, strictly just for elections and voter registration. They're standing there at the window. We maybe have 5 visitors a month to the window. Most of the traffic that you see is, where do you pay your taxes? Where's adult probation? I understand that people are used to voter registration being up there, but a lot of what voter registration used to do is exactly what Kim does now as the clerk. So roles have shifted a little, but we need the space because we need those workers that are sending out the applications to the voters, and then getting those applications back, and then processing them, and then sending out the ballot, and then scanning those ballots back in. We need the oversight because, let's be honest, I mean, I had a stack of secrecy envelopes that were wrong. I mean, and to be in there in a crowded room was not fair to any of them because, I mean, they were all on top of each other. There was no space. Back in the back where finance used to be is where those individuals will work. It will be not what's on the main floor, but the workers that are there that are helping with the ballots. All the cameras that we have, we don't have to purchase any cameras because those cameras will come down. The locks will come down. We will make every attempt if they get to the security where they're having any kind of frustration. I will definitely walk out there and I will walk that person up to the window. I have no problem helping anybody, but a lot of what happens downstairs anyways. So it's a one-stop shop versus up here, down there, and then, oh, wait, you gotta go back up here because Kim's up here, you need to file it there. I get the frustration or the concern of that's a long walk down that tunnel. I know I make it every day. But you can also come in off the side, and I believe that if we give 6 months' notice, and I believe if we send out some form of a postcard or a letter letting them know to the masses of St. Joe County so that everyone gets it, that's a registered voter, that will let them know of the move. We will put in informational, like a brochure saying, this is what you do. If there are things that people are coming here for that they could easily just call us and say, I don't have access to the internet, I need this form, I want to cancel my registration. Okay, we will mail it to you. I feel like voter registration needs to step up a little bit in the aspect of being able to better serve the citizens of St. Joseph County that are not able to get around or to have access to internet. We need to be more available to them on the phone or mailing them out forms that they need, which I think is a great thing. I just feel we would better serve St. Joseph County, and I have every intention of all of VR and elections to be doing everything they can to help make sure that the people find us. But I do believe a mass postcard or a letter that goes out to every citizen that is a registered voter of St. Joseph County so that they are aware and then that goes out, and then we keep the 2 individuals up there and then bring them down. Because we definitely need that room. That used to be the ballot room. So this is not a new thing. This is just kind of reverting back to what was. So, and it seemed to work really well. And then
Excuse me, let's not forget the chalkboard,
And
which
the
is a
chalkboard,
huge issue.
people did express their frustration with me because they had to come down to do the chalkboard. And I'm like, well, I can't stick it out there because if I did, do you know how many people walk by and would wipe it with their hand? I mean, and that's the reality of that. Somebody who's irritated and has to go to some other department up here and just wipes it, and then we're doing it all over again. So
Yeah, and it's a fun tradition. I think a lot of the candidates
Definitely.
really look forward to that.
They
so,
do, and
yeah.
in those cases, that's where we will walk with those candidates or whoever who have phones to make sure that they can come in, get their pictures taken, do what they are allowed to do, and not be hindered just because we are now under the court. I don't want that to be a hindrance. I want that to be, I mean, security-wise, I think it's great. I think that's a perfect thing right there. I mean, look what's been happening. So I feel like the secure and the fact that we could better serve our community and make sure that we definitely get the word out, whether it's through the website, but I definitely believe we need to send a letter to every registered voter letting them know of the change and how they can get in and access and like let them know where they can park and everything so that they are fully informed.
Any other questions, comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Would you take public comment on this, please?
To you.
I think it doesn't hurt to have it.
Okay, sure. Please state your name and address.
Pam Clays, 1106 Bellevue. I'd like you to remember that the city of South Bend is going to be vacating these offices soon. I urge you to wait and look at that space. Because why upset the apple cart? We had people this year that had difficulty going down that hallway, coming to the county city building. There'll be more room when the city leaves. I've walked that hall. It's confusing. And I got kind of brains. If you're somebody that has needs, it's going to be difficult. I encourage you to look at the city space because that would be keeping VR in one space. It doesn't need to be with the election. I think it'd be crampeder down there. There was something else I wanted to say, but I can't remember. But look at the city space because there's plenty of it. Thank you. And don't make your decision now. Let others chime in because it's a big decision. The other thing is that hallway is going to be worked on. because of all the leaks and stuff. They're doing assessments, and it's crazy to do it now before that happens. Thank you.
Diana Hess, St. Joe County Democratic Party Chair, 2411 Mishawaka Avenue, South Bend. I have concerns similar to Pam's about access, because it's all well and good that there's kind of business decisions about why things should be consolidated. But we're here I'm also an elected official and have been a candidate. So there's a reason that we're here in this county city building, and that's to serve the public. And that's why we're elected, and that's why we're here. And there's some people that are not as comfortable getting online and doing things. Those people often tend to be older and more marginalized people. So they are more likely to be the people that show up here to register to vote. And also, if they're not registered to vote, and that's why they're coming, they won't get any mailing because they're not registered to vote. But, so to me, it would seem critical to keep public-facing activity here on the 4th floor. This is the government building. This is where people come. There's no reason to leave your cell phone in your car or bring it back up that hallway. And I just walked that tunnel recently to file my own financial report. And I know there's a lot of water damage, and we've had meetings I'm also a county councilor, we've had meetings about having to do work in that tunnel because of the water damage. And at one point, I thought some of the reason for wanting to move out of that space as a clerk was that there was some mold down there. So hopefully that's been mitigated. But especially if we're going to have work done on that hallway, and I know you're saying they could access through the back of the courthouse, but I don't think that's particularly intuitive. And we are the government building. So I'm very concerned that that tunnel could be shut down for a while to have work done. I saw the water. I saw the water damage. I had to go through the security to get in there. So I'm really worried that we're not serving the public well by moving everything. In fact, I'd rather see all the other stuff, including the chalkboard, moved up to the 4th floor. It could go inside the office. I don't see why somebody would come in there and wipe it, but that's my concerns. Thank you.
Carl Baxmeyer, Board of Commissioners. Just want to reiterate, and maybe you talked about it while I had to step out and take a phone call. As Diana pointed out, we are in the process of planning for what happens when the city moves out. I know that's been a long process. When I first met with Mayor Mueller, James said, we're going to be out by the end of 2024. And then he kind of hedged a little bit through no fault of his own. They discovered that there are some elevator problems over at the building that they're going to. I do not know the specifics, but every time we talk, he hasn't changed his target date, which is the end of the first quarter or early in the second quarter of this year. Since we renovated these elevators several years ago, I think that's a reasonable time frame. That's what he's currently saying to us, that they're going to move. As Diana pointed out, we just engaged a further study of that tunnel. That tunnel is terrible. And I know there's some frustration, and there should be, on the part of the clerk, that we weren't able to relocate her sooner and her staff that's down there. One of my goal as a county commissioner is to consolidate the clerks once we have the ability to do that. So I guess I would echo what was said, defer moving, at least until we have more ability to come back and report to the clerk, to the election board. This is the absolute move-out date. This is what we intend to do with the spaces. And My personal feeling is that elected officials, be it the clerk or the assessor or the auditor, the county commissioners should not be dictating how you use your space. That is not, we shouldn't be micromanaging. But the county commissioners, with the support of the council, we are the landlords of the building, and we should be saying where people go. How you use that space is not our purview. So again, long way of saying, we are moving forward. I would hope that you would not go to the cost. This is much more accessible than the basement. And don't forget, you can't take cell phones down there. And for those of us who go down there a lot of times we see people muttering as they have to go back up to get their cell phone secured. Anyway, those are my comments, and your decision. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner Baxmeyer, can I just ask you a question? Sure. Thank you. I am unclear about the tunnel. Clearly, we walk in it multiple times a day. Is there any way to give a time frame on that? And is it possible that, I'm just tossing this out, that they could close the tunnel for a lengthy period of time, or a permanent decision to close the tunnel? And that's what you're exploring, is that correct?
We're exploring what is it actually going to take to secure that tunnel, to stop the flooding. We don't know. You know, we had an estimate when we did the assessment of the building. The report from DLZ tagged that at $3.5 million. I'm not comfortable with that number because nobody is able to say exactly what needs to be done.
Okay.
And we've re-engaged DLZ. We had a little money left over from the facility condition assessment. We re-engaged DLZ. They're going to actually physically have people excavate, look, let's find out why that's occurring. I think there's a need for that tunnel, but not for the public. Regardless, it needs to be fixed or closed, one of the two. But $3.5 million is a big expense, and
Oh,
not
definitely.
knowing exactly what needs to be done anymore.
Right.
So what I'm hearing from at least one commissioner, at least one council person, is let's wait a couple months and see. And work with the county to see if they can give us additional space, be it on the 4th floor, or the 13th floor, or whatever floor it is. Hopefully renovated space.
Yeah.
Hint,
But-
hint.
The problem or the other issue is she has to be in the courts. And now that VR and elections, which is now one, it's not separate. It's not elections and VR. It's one department now. They are under the clerk.
Yeah, my office has to be my office does have
Yeah.
to be in the courthouse, so. So,
But
Is there
we still
any-
get traffic for people that want to come in, that still come in and think they need to pay child support downstairs. I mean, so that tunnel being shut off is going to affect all those people that still, I mean, just because those people have been moved up, we still get the foot traffic of going, hey, nope, you need to go up one more floor. Nope, you need to go up one more floor.
I will defer to all the attorneys sitting up there. I went through this when I was working before I became a commissioner in Michigan. So that's Michigan. We're Indiana, but there was a question of what is the courthouse? And Amy, if you're in this building, does that mean you're in the courthouse? If you're in courthouse 3, does that mean that is a courthouse?
that is a courthouse, yes, right. This is the county city building.
But is there,
Right.
I guess in our investigation, I think we should look at what defines your location.
Well, the judges did. They told Amy she could not move out of and into the county city building. They made that very clear, that she needed to stay in the courts. And I think everybody's used to it because voter registration used to be under the commissioners. And I think people have forgotten that they are now under the clerk. I see both sides of it, and trust me, I hear every one of them, and I am fully like, okay, how can we fix this? How can we work?
Well,
I think there's some,
the courthouse has to be accessible to the public, right? I mean, saying the courthouse isn't accessible to the public is crazy, because the courthouse is essentially there for the public. I mean, what I'm hearing is there are issues that we need to potentially work through about accessibility to the courthouse in the short term. And I'm simply saying, with the studies being done, moving, not moving, I mean, maybe hitting pause for a little bit, figuring out what needs to be done to make sure that the building is accessible, and then we can do whatever it is we need to do for a final decision on moving, working with the commissioners and the council, would probably be prudent.
I would agree with that. And I do think that the issue that Commissioner raised, and also that Diana raised with respect to use of cell phones, it seems that there are different rules for entry into this building and entry into the courthouse. And because of that, people may have problems. If you walk through this building and try to go there and you have a cell phone, you're not allowed, because in the courthouse, cell phones are not allowed. So we don't want to stop people from getting to voter registration because it's a courthouse rule. So that just needs to be worked out one way or the other, I think, along with everything else.
thank you.
Judy Bradford, speaking for the League of Women Voters. My address is 1122 Claremont, South Bend, 46617. Is that a state law or a county law that the clerk's office has to be in the courthouse, or is that just a judge's decision or just tradition? Does anybody know?
I believe it's a state law, but I haven't been asked to research this until right now, so I'm almost certain it's a state law. It's not that the judges and the clerk are independently either appointed or elected, so the judges themselves don't have the power to tell the clerk where she can be. I believe they're relying on state code or state statute that dictates that the clerk must be located in the courthouse.
Okay, thank you.
We will check.
We will, indeed.
And let us know the statute number if you would, so we can also know.
So do I have a motion?
I would motion to table this issue.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Restructure election payroll process as required by the State Board of Accounts.
Okay. So, Tricia, you've got that. Do you want to do this one?
Yeah, I was told, I believe it was the beginning of last year, that State Board of Accounts was requiring anybody that was working the election to be put on payroll, which we always knew that absentee was put on payroll anyways. But I was informed, and it included all the vote center workers, and I wanted to have a heart attack because those people change daily, and then to have to go through the process of getting them on payroll, and they drop out, and then we have a new person, and then they have to be I-9'd, and it's literally a State Board of Accounts saying, because there are other counties that are doing that. I can't remember what they are, the names of them offhand, because we've had conversations, they're like, oh, well, we do it. But I'm also thinking to myself, do you have 7 polling places and you've got, 50 workers? That's different, because then my payroll is going to be 700 people. And that, to me, is a lot. So to try to get some clarification, but the auditor's office has made it very clear to me that vote center workers would be on payroll. I don't kill the messenger, because I would love for this to not be a thing.
And I'll defer to Chuck, because Chuck reached out to the election board, and who reached out to the State Board of Accounts, we got some clarification, so.
Right, yeah, I did reach out to Angie Nussmeier at the Indiana Election Division, and I sent the email thread around to the other board members and to Andrew also. There's complication in that state law. There are specifically 2 statutes, and they talk about election workers, the statutory workers, being independent contractors, and it uses that term explicitly. On the other hand, there are IRS rules that talk about when a person is an independent contractor versus an employee, and it has to do with term of employment, control of the workplace. There's all kinds of factors that go into that. And it seems like the State Board of Accounts is somewhere in the middle. So I think the best thing on this is to, since we don't have to hire any election workers this year, it might be, again, best to wait, try to sort out,
Right.
and I'm happy to reach out to the State Board of Accounts folks and see if we can get some clarification on this
Right.
and see where that takes us.
This
Yeah,
would
that's actually why I wanted to bring it up at this meeting, in planning out what we're doing in 2025. This is something that we need to take a look at, because my feeling is that State Board of Accounts has their requirements, IRS has their requirements, and then our county as well has their requirements. So the purpose of this being on the agenda is to bring this up to the election board and understanding that we have to meet the criteria of 3 different organizations. And our meeting, it was just a casual meeting last week that Tricia and I had with Pete Augustino, the county attorney, and HR, Courtney at HR. And that's where we need clarification from all 3 organizations on what are we supposed to do. We would love to not to have to do this, but we have to make sure that we're in compliance with all 3 organizations. So we're not here to solve problems right now. It's that I want to make you aware of the position that we're in. And of course, we want to be compliant with everything.
Right.
So it may be that we talk to the auditor and the payroll department here, and, get a meeting with the IRS and the SBOA, so, because it does seem unclear.
Yeah, and based on the emails we got back, I think the State Board of Accounts, there was a little miscommunication or misunderstanding on what they were putting out. I mean, the State Board of Accounts can't contradict state law.
Right.
State law says they're independent contractors. The State Board of Accounts cannot reclassify. They don't have the power to trump state law. So, once again, we'll get some clarification. As of right now, if you need to, we can talk to the auditor's office and tell them we're on hold. We're not pushing
There's-
through,
yeah, that's what
election
right.
workers or anybody else,
Right.
and they don't have to worry about it for the time being.
Yeah, for the time being, but just so it's on everybody's radar, because I don't want to be here discussing this. This time next year, we will be hiring election workers, so I just, on the monthly calendar, we got to keep that in the forefront. So thank you, I appreciate your attention to that.
Yeah, I would move then that we table this issue until
I
further.
have a motion and a second.
You second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, next item is vote machine consultant contract.
All righty. Because there is no election in 2025, that's another thing that's on the work calendar, the tasks to do, is to look more carefully at our contracts with No Inc. and with RBM. Nick from RBM is here. We have some questions about it, and again, because of the time that we have in 2025 to dig deeper in it and get some clarification on things, we thought this would be a good time. It's, No Inc. is our consultant for our poll pads, and RBM is the consultant for the Unison vote machines. So I wanted to bring this up.
Well, and I appreciate you sending the contract out, and I had a couple of things after I looked at it. The current invoice that we've got for 2025 doesn't seem to match Exhibit B in the contract. So that's an issue. Andrew, I'd ask that you look at that.
Sure, absolutely.
Because it didn't match, I then asked for the invoices we got in 2024, for the 2024 election, and I cannot square the invoices we received with what the contract says we're supposed to pay. So I'd also appreciate, Andrew, if you got all of the invoices from 2024, looked at Exhibit B of the contract, which is what we've actually contract for, the services and goods we're supposed to receive, and what we actually paid, and make sure that everything's as it should be. And then I would like to see if there are any other vendors who would be willing to give us quotes for 2025, just because or 2026, I guess is the next
Yeah.
election, but just being good stewards, I don't know what else is out there, and I see this contract, and it rolls over year to year, but I don't have anything to compare it to.
Right. It
Um,
it does does it, yeah, and we have until, I believe, October 1st. I think it's 2 months from the start of the next year.
Yeah, 60
to-
days before the end of the calendar year. So we're locked in for this year for the maintenance on the machines.
Right.
But that's something else, is the invoice we got, there's no support services this year, because we're not doing any elections. So we've got the hardware maintenance and the software and firmware. But once again, even the OSC software number is different than Exhibit B. So once again, if you've got questions, I mean, we can talk after, but we need clarification on that. So
Absolutely.
I would appreciate if someone make a motion to review the invoices and request bids from other vendors.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Nick a question as it relates to the off years. So last one was 2021, this one will be 2025, when we don't have an election. If you could describe the difference in the kinds of services you provide. Obviously, you're not going to be here feeding ballots into and tabulating and so on like that, but could you explain in general what the differences are?
For sure. So
Would
in-
you mind stepping to the microphone so everybody can hear you? Thank you.
Hello, Nick Abernathy with RBM. In the off years, the only services we really provide is the maintenance. I believe there's just one maintenance trip in the summer season to make sure all machines are in working order. So we go through every Freedom Vote, every OVO, make sure all the ballot box hardware is working, make sure the scanners are operating properly, get new rolls and all that on there. But that is the only service provided in an off year.
Okay, so it seems that the invoice is the same kind of an invoice as we get in an election year, which actually talks about being here and using paper supplies and so on like that. So is that correct then for 2025?
I would have to review it. I personally only have a surface level understanding of the invoices. I haven't created them. It's a little over my head. But I could absolutely get you good answers on that.
Well, actually, I do have an answer to that. So when we were quoted for this year, Keith quoted us because the problem that I faced as the finance person, director, whatever you want to call me, 2023's budget was already budgeted when we came into 2023. So I had no prior knowledge of what the contract was for RBM, nor could I find it. And so I had no idea what the costs were. So going into what I had been billed in 2023, I paid. So had I known that it was going to jump in 2024, when we were making the 2024 budget, we would have budgeted for the difference because presidentials do cost more than municipals and midterms because of different factors and stuff like that. So I had a big issue, and I had spoke with Keith, and I said, well, how was I to prepare for, the first bill, and then to know that I was going to get a second bill in June? And I'm like, we were only budgeted so much because I didn't have a contract, because it's been a rolling contract since 2013, which I'm not privy to. So, and obviously costs and everything go up as does everything. So Keith, when he quoted me for 2025, he included this the base amount that you see on the RBM invoice, so that's what it would be consistently every year. Instead of it going up, down, up, down, up, down, it would be a consistent, this is what it is, whatever. If there is no election, there is a presidential, or if there's a municipal, that it was going to be a base pay. Because I'm like, how do I continue to budget for that if I don't know what the bill is going to be? And that's when he quoted the invoice that looks like this. Yes. And then if you look at the one that is dated 6/17, it looks like this. That's what it would be this year if we were just to pay this year.
So in a non-election year, RBM wants $232,000 to maintain the to, looks like some software uploads.
Yes.
That's a lot of money. Yeah.
So you're saying the maintenance on 750 machines is done in one day?
It typically takes us around 10 to 14 days. We're here for quite a while.
So it's not one trip?
Well, it's one trip for us,
Okay.
but, I mean, that's just how you define trip, I guess, but.
A lot of money. Well, Tricia, just so I understand, I'm looking through this. I see a letter from June 1st, 2023, addressed to the clerk.
Yes.
And it says, the cost of the election for 2024 was estimated at $433,000. Then we have a letter from June of last year that says the cost of this year, so we've gone, 2024 has got to be the most expensive year in the cycle. It's a presidential year. It's $433,000, most expensive year. 2025's budget sent to us by RBM, which has got to be the least expensive year in a cycle, is $232,000.
Yes.
Okay.
But I just want to let you know that I did not get this 433,000 because we were doing budgets then. Then this would have been calculated into the 2024 budget, which
Yep.
is why I had to do some moving of money
Right.
for this past election.
Wow. Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
So since it's a professional service, I don't think we have to go through the formal sealed bid process, but we still can go through a solicitation process. Yep, I'm happy to take the lead on that.
Okay, and then review the invoices?
Of course,
Perfect.
yep, happy to do it.
All right. Next item, work groups, travel boards and inspectors.
All right, I wanted to address this because of the votes, the election worker feedback sessions that a lot of people participated in, especially the inspectors. I had just floated the idea of, with some of the inspectors, to encourage them to form a work group of best practices and coming up with best practices. The inspectors and judges, well, all the election workers who attended were very passionate about what they do. And I was just so pleased with the motivation and the ideas that they came up with, and the way that they really have a high priority for improving the process of elections. And so that was really good. So I would love to be able to harness that, that passion that they have, and we're not in an election year. And I just didn't know how that might work with the parties. Again, I'm just so happy that there's a passion out there from these individual election workers. So I don't know how to manage that. Maybe Diana and I could chat a little bit, but I think it's a really good thing. And the same could be said with the travel board. I think a discussion had happened during the election about improving the travel board, the processes that we do and the way we solicit election workers for travel board. I think, is that correct, Chuck, that had been part of the discussion?
I believe that was part of what our discussion was.
Right,
if I
yeah.
recall.
Right, so looking at improving both of, anybody that wants to help and has some good ideas, I'd like to be able to, again, find a mechanism for them to bring their ideas and collaborate together. So I'd like this to be a collaboration with the clerk's office, and then other interested community members, things like travel board and the way that inspectors and judges are running and preparing. I mean, one thing that they talked about, the inspectors, was definitely, if we could get those lists of election workers more in advance. They say, I get it on Sunday afternoon if I go to the Sunday inspectors training. And, we all agree that, yes, in a perfect world, that would be great. But if it's something that maybe we could all work together on, I think that would be very helpful. So I wanted to just talk about it with the election board. And again, this is something on the 2025 plan, and try to keep it moving forward, and certainly harness that energy while it's there. And I will shortly, soon, be having an election worker feedback session for the absentee workers. I've done all of the election day workers, and I wanted to get those same ideas, same kind of collaboration from absentee, so.
I think that's a great idea. I think if there's comments from members of the party, they can give to the party chairs, and then there's a collaborative effort between the party chairs and the clerk to bring us ideas or thoughts to improve the process. All for it.
Okay, good. Great.
Any other comments? There is one more item of new business. Actually, there's two
Two,
items of new
yeah.
business that did not make the agenda because they were just recently added. The first is the disbanding of committees. The first committee on the list is Bobby Kay, the surveyor. I'd like a motion to disband Bobby's committee. Sorry, Mr. Kaczynski.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next committee is Doug Chafee. Do I have a motion to disband Mr. Chafee's committee?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is Jason Pontek.
Biontech?
There you go. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Ed Fisher is the next committee. Do I have a motion to disband Ed Fisher's committee?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next committee is Kent Heiser. Do I have a motion to disband Mr. Heiser's committee?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Last committee on the agenda here is William Snidecki. Do I have a motion to disband Mr. Snidecki's committee?
So moved.
Is Mr. Snedecki, wasn't he elected to?
He was elected.
And so doesn't that mean his committee continues?
I'm, yeah.
It does
He
not.
can reinitiate it.
You
Yeah.
can disband and then reinitiate it when you're a candidate again, say,
Correct.
4 years from now or whatever.
His school board, he didn't even have to really open one if he,
Okay, so, and these are requests by these folks to disband?
This is their request, right?
request.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess, yeah, because that's all right. Second, I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And then the last item of new business is the destruction of the is it
2020.
2020 ballots. Is that right?
yes, the election materials
Election
and
material from
ballots.
2020,
Yep.
got it, okay.
Get him, Gidge.
Hi, Gidget, St. Joe County Clerk. For the 2020 primary and general election, which was the presidential election, it was certified November 13th of 2020. Since it involved President Trump, and he did lose that election, a lot of the states were holding in case if there was a recount. So we did hold on to those ballots and did not destroy them in 2022. I am here today to request, since he is now president again, to go ahead and destroy the 2020 presidential election ballot.
And that's within the 22 months that's required.
Correct, that
Yes.
is under, it is 22 months after the certification of the election under IC Code CL 10-30.
And there, my understanding is that there are no proceedings involving this particular set of ballots as it relates to that election.
Correct.
Do I have a motion?
I move to have our records clerk destroy the election materials from the 2020 election.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Old business, any old business?
I think so.
All right, seeing none, moving on, public comment. Please state your name and address for the record. Please make all of your comments to the board as a whole, not any individual, and please do not say anything disparaging.
Got it. I've done this a few times. Sue Kesselman, 4022 Kennedy Drive. This is kind of a pondering. So let's just suppose that I bought a condemned house at the county properties tax sale in District 1, but that I rent and live at Irish Hills in District 5. I list the condemned property as my voting residence. It's condemned. Do I live in District 1 or 5? If I'm an elected official for District 1, when I clearly can't live there in a condemned house. So I'm just wondering, how does the election board determine residency?
Are you, we don't respond to questions, are you, it's just
Oh,
public
okay.
comment.
Okay, well, that's my comment. I'm just wondering, in a case where you can't live in a house, then how do you, I'm just, maybe someone could get back with me on where I could find that information in the rules. That would be very helpful. I'd appreciate that.
Thank you for your input.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment?
Diana Hess, St. Joe County Democratic Party. And I just wanted to comment on a couple things. And one is I do like the idea of having those working committees. And I think that's important to listen to the people who are actually on the ground doing the work. It's an awesome idea. So I'm very happy about that. And then speaking to the pay issue, I know there were some problems with pay, and I've dealt directly with Tricia on those. And so it makes it challenging the way the pay has been managed now. So we had some people that weren't getting their paycheck until 4, 5, 6 weeks after the election. And it's difficult enough, as the party chairs know, to get poll workers, to get vote center workers without them being frustrated about their pay. So anything we can do to remedy that process a little is great. And the other thing, and I not to disparage, but I don't want to beat anybody up here, but we did struggle, I think, and we all know that on election day, of trying to get hold of anybody at the county city building, in the clerk's office. We had deputy election commissioners working here, but it was very difficult for anybody to get through on the phone line. So I don't know if there's any way to improve that process moving forward, because we actually, I was at headquarters all day. And we had one inspector call us consistently because he couldn't get through here for questions. I had another one, a new one, call most of the time to me. And fortunately, I did have some cell phone numbers of some election people, and they were very gracious and willing to help me, and I was able to, and they help others. But that's a problem. We also had almost, we had about 18 poll watchers. They also had trouble. So we were telling people, here are the numbers to call, but then they were just consistently busy. There was a process of hitting a number. It wasn't a direct line through. So if anything can be done to improve that process in the future, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Pam Clays, you have my address. I just wanted to let you know on the website, it still shows Tom Dixon as chair. And when you click on the vote centers, it makes you sign in to St. Joseph County. And that's weird. So if those could be rectified, even if it's to say there are no current vote centers, these were the ones used, or whatever, something to make the simple public know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I don't need one. We are adjourned at noon, 12 o'clock.
12 even, yeah.